I'm going to call us to order. First, everybody has their agenda. I am going to make a motion to add onto our agenda as new business, making a recommendation to the village council, and we'll basically discuss the interviews and our two candidates and make a recommendation to the village council based on our vote tonight. Can I get a second for that?
Second.
Thank you.
Can I make another addition, if we have time?
Absolutely.
The other night at the council meeting, the mayor mentioned the pending legislation about nonconformities and downzoning, and I looked at that a little bit. I just wanted to have a discussion.
Nonconformities. You said nonconformities?
Yes.
What's the definition?
I'll give it to you if we
Okay.
get that.
Yeah. Are you making that motion?
Yes,
Then I'll
I'd like
second.
to add it.
Okay. What are you calling that? New legislation?
Yeah, pending legislation. Again, it's, I think it's Senate Bill 587.
Okay, SB 587. Okay, I'm gonna add that to new business. Perfect. All right, I've got that. Perfect. I do not have, well, we've got all members present. We'll say that, we'll record all members present. I don't have last meeting's minutes with me. I've been full force focusing on kind of the short window we had to get this work done for the village council. So I've got a couple more little things I need to do with that. We'll move those to the next meeting, and I'll have both sets at that time for us to approve. I think I would also like to, we've got old business to discuss, but I think I'd like to make a motion to table that to April for short-term rentals.
Oh,
So we've got that discussion that's kind of hanging out there, but I think this new legislation and certainly the things that we've been asked to look at for tonight take precedent. So I'm making a motion to move short-term rentals to April agenda if somebody wants to second.
I'll second.
Perfect. All right, so we can move to new business.
can I just throw something out there? Just an FYI, you remember
Sure.
last time we were assigned municipalities to visit, so I did visit Pinehurst
Yes.
and met with the chairman there, and he basically sent me their short-term rentals, but he'd be happy to come and talk to us.
Yeah, I know they've been through some things. That might not be a bad idea. Let's get board consensus on that when we get there.
Okay.
Or do you know what, I'll send an email out and everybody let me know what you think, individually, as far
Yeah.
as having them come in.
Well, he's happy to visit, but it's not a requirement or anything like that. But if we have questions, we can always just ask him.
That's perfect, okay. So, in the last village council meeting, we were asked to, in the past we have followed this process before. I have something I'd like to present to the group after we're done with this discussion that I gave you a copy of, just some administrative policy, a recommendation that we can use this as a starting point. It's certainly not the be-all end-all, just something we can open the discussion with, that is based on our previous policy that we did prior to this last round of selection for our member seat. In the last village council meeting, Councilman Robbins asked for our input, and we are very happy to give that, I'm sure. We were given the applications for 3 applicants. One of those applicants withdrew her application on Monday morning, so we are left with 2 applicants, and we interviewed those, Rick, just a little while ago. I will tell you, our work is cut out for us. We have 2 excellent applicants, and I told Jason Kaiser a moment ago, and I'll tell Rich the same thing. They're both so excellent that it's going to be a super hard choice, number one. Number two, whoever is not picked, I beg you to please reapply, because both of them have tremendous skill sets and tremendous mindset and just a great, I think, benefit to the community, and both of them would, be an asset. And whatever, we can't choose both, so whoever doesn't get chosen, I really beg you, please to reapply. So now that that's said, who would like to open the conversation as far as the applicants go?
Well, I certainly agree with you. It's an easy and hard choice. It's easy because they're both well qualified and
Facts.
you can't go wrong with either one. It's hard because we have to pick just one. We're not going to revisit going to 7 members.
No.
I'm kidding.
Tosh, would you like me to leave? So
No,
we can talk?
absolutely not. This is what
Really?
transparency looks like, and we are all about it. No, we're perfectly fine. I think, and I'm just gonna address the board, both applications, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, I apologize, I'll let you start back up, but both applicants have outstanding credentials, and we don't mind discussing both in front of anyone. It's just because, we'd like to have a forward foot of transparency. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, my questioning was just more of a discussion about what our land use plan is and their views on that. Quite frankly, I was kind of hoping that they'd have a vastly different view, and maybe I would be magnanimous and say I want somebody with a different view on the board for diversity, but they both have similar, I think, consistent views with our current land use plan, which is good too. So I looked just for personality. Again, it's hard because they both would be very well fit to have discussions and so forth. So it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really add anything to that. I'm 100% in agreement, it's kind of like flip a coin.
Yeah, I found much the same thing in the interviews. I did have a little bit of a standout candidate. I felt that Rich, his background, credentials, research, level of detail that he's done in his career was just a little bit more than what Jason's done, and no detraction from Jason by sheer default, because he's got a couple of years on him. He's got a little bit more experience in that world of research and report writing and detail orientation.
You mean a couple of years because he's older?
Well, I'm trying to be PC about it, Kim, but you keep telling me I pick on people. I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just saying by sheer, the breadth and depth of experience for Rich is a little bit more than Jason. Jason did have at time as a treasurer on the water department where he came from, and I think what I loved about him was he was in a small town, or a small, kind of like our village in Florida, and then saw some crazy unchecked growth in that village. So he has seen what it can look like when planning doesn't do what planning should do.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge, and I don't think I even asked Rich about that, but that was something that was volunteered from Jason. But as far as the applications go, I think you guys are right. Both of these applicants would be an outstanding fit for this board. I felt like I was a little bit more, that scale just teetered a little bit more towards Rich, just because of the breadth of knowledge he has and the depth of experience he has with specific those things.
Jason and I talked about down in Florida, apparently there was some flooding issues that he had to deal with because of a river that he lived next door to, when he was flooded 5 times in his house.
Oh, gosh.
So he does have an interesting perspective on growth and development. So
Absolutely.
I think another, positive for Rich, for me, was his history here in Moore County, which can be helpful. And again, I think generally speaking, our land use plan, our long range plan, is careful, if not slow, no growth, and someone who's seen Moore County for decades helpful in that as well, so. My recommendation would be, I would want to recommend Rich.
Rick,
Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to meet
that's
with
all
them.
right, that's all right.
I did read their applications, I guess, and, I do know Rich from a local law enforcement group. Again, it's just from, on paperwork, I mean, it's, you know, it's like a toss-up, I would think, you know, that way, I guess being a little bit biased because I know Rich, you know, from the community, and just with that, the interactions that we had would just, only because I haven't really, and it's my fault, I didn't get a chance to meet with the others, so I don't know, I can't give I can't give a full assessment on what I think that they would do or believe, only by what I have now, my knowledge, so I would have to, you know, say Rich too, just by that, but again, you guys did your homework more than I did, so I respect whatever decision, you know, you would go with too, so.
Kim, how about you?
I'm pretty straightforward, because Rich moved here from Kansas City. So
You cannot bring Kansas City into this,
And
this is
Jason's,
not allowed.
no,
No,
Jason
kidding.
said he was a Denver Broncos fan, so
Oh,
Oh, Lord.
pretty simple.
no.
No,
Well,
but seriously, you know, it's like,
yeah,
Either one.
I cannot express enough how thankful I am for both candidates and how patient all candidates have been, because I feel like the process got a little off the rails, and you know, I think, you know, some of it got mixed up and things that the village, you know, this is exactly why we've run the process a little different in the past, because the village council has a breadth of base that they have to deal with. This pool was a big deal, there was a couple other big deals going on, there was a whole election, and so our process has run differently in years past and run more efficiently because we have a more finite, more detailed, you know, lower level scope. Not to detract from us, but our scope is pretty focused. Theirs has to be a lot bigger, and when they're trying to deal with a situation that is more focused like this, I think that it got a little off the rails and certainly lasted far longer than it needed to. So, you know, I think we can bring it to a vote. I'm gonna make a motion that Rich be our recommendation to the village council for the open seat. And then we're gonna, if somebody will second, we're also gonna do it by, all in favor, yea and nay. So we'll have each
Second.
individual. Okay, seconded, and, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all in favor, none opposed. All right, Rich will be our recommendation. And again, I just, it bears repeating, for Jason, I really hope he reapplies because he is super knowledgeable and has a lot to offer the community. So as soon as another position opens up, or even on the Board of Adjustments, or if he wants to run for council, I think he'd be an excellent asset to the community.
Would you be willing, on behalf of the board, to email Jason
Absolutely.
and let him know
yeah.
Absolutely.
that sentiment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just make sure you tell him that if he wasn't a Bronco fan.
I'm not telling him that. I'm gonna copy you on it if you wanna put that in
I
there.
don't know, is that a protected class?
It might be, I hope so, because I'm a Steelers fan and I don't wanna hear what y'all gotta say about that. But anyway, so in that same vein, moving forward, I have put on paper kind of, if you pull your UDO up and you're looking at the UDO, give me just a moment, I need to pull mine up. Alright, so if you're in UDO, in chapter 21, and we go down to Planning and Zoning Board 21.2.1, it first talks about composition. First tells what we do as a planning board, then we go into composition, and then 21.2.1.2 is appointment and terms of members. that's where I think we could really, put something in the UDO that could be impactful going forward for other boards when members, are moving around. And really, I wasn't planning to say anything about changing any of this portion, just adding this, something like this, whatever we decide to recommend, that's what I think should be added to the bottom after appointments to fill vacancies created by members who resign or otherwise unavailable to complete terms of their appointment shall be for the unexpired portion of the term. So below that, what I put on paper, and this is just a starting point, this is not a be-all end-all, to promote informed and transparent appointments, the following process shall apply when filling vacants or expired terms on the Planning and Zoning Board. Number 1, Planning and Zoning Board vacancies shall be posted publicly on the Foxfire Village website within 5 business days of vacated seat, and vacancy notices will remain posted for a minimum of 15 days and a maximum of 30 days after the first applicant has been received, or application has been received. In the case of the expired terms, the vacancy shall be posted publicly 30 days prior to the end of that term. So like I'm coming up in December, the vacancy position should be posted 30 days before I leave. So that should be posted in November, because we know my term is ending in December. The process, I was told last December when they thought I was leaving, but there was a discrepancy on when my term ended. I was told that if I wanted to stay on the board, I would need to reapply and be reapproved by the village. So that's the standing way it goes. If there's, if there's no applicants, I could stay until an application came on board. But if there is an application, I would have to reapply. Same thing for all other members.
So when you resign, are you resigning, I guess you just answered this, but you're resigning as chair or member or both?
It will be all of the above, because when I leave, the chair position will be open and the ETJ position will be open. So when my term expires, I'm not really resigning, my term is expiring.
Yeah.
So we know, each one of us, when our terms expire. I'm just saying that 30 days prior to an expiring term, where the member is still sitting and then planning to finish out that term, that commitment, that should be posted 30 days before. So my term ends in December, that position, that ETJ seat vacancy should be posted 30 days prior. Okay. So somewhere beginning of November. In case of,
go
ahead, sure, yeah.
I lost my bookmark. Get me to that.
Oh, 21.
Where is it though on the forms and documents? Under what section on the website?
Village ordinance.
Oh,
Yeah.
under village ordinances. If you
Not
go to,
forms and documents.
here you go.
That fools me all the time.
Yeah, I
It's-
had
Go
the
to
bookmark.
village
Yeah, go to
ordinances.
village ordinances. Right in the middle of the page on the Foxfire Village site. Like, it's the blue one, village ordinance.
it.
There you go. You got it.
Yeah.
You got it, you got it. Let me get back to where I was.
Sorry.
No worries. Planning and Zoning Board Chair shall receive all applications as they're submitted and will organize dissemination to the remaining PZ Board. PZ Board Chair shall schedule interviews for qualified applicants. All current PZ Board members shall have the opportunity to participate in interviewing candidates. Following the interviews, PZ Board shall collectively review the applications and interview outcomes in regular or special meeting, then select by majority vote candidate or candidates during that meeting. Foxfire Village Council, that number 4, Foxfire Village Council shall receive all submitted applications with ineligible applications marked as such, the PZ Board recommendations, and then they may conduct additional due diligence, including but not limited to contacting candidates directly as it deems necessary. The Village Council shall make the final appointment decision in accordance with applicable law in this chapter. This process is intended to assist the appointing authorities in making fully informed decisions without unduly burdening the time dedicated to other council business. There's two lines in there I'm not sure that belong, but I felt strongly, and it was kind of like a 60% they should be there, and then a 40% they shouldn't. And that's the first sentence and the last sentence. What say you guys?
The first sentence?
The first sentence, just to promote informed and transparent appointments, and the following process shall apply when filling vacancies or expired terms on the Planning and Zoning Board. I wasn't sure if that wording should be there to, the first part, to promote informed and transparent appointments, or do you think that has a place in the UDO? Should that be there, or should
How
we
is
just?
it detrimental, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know if I saw that type of wording in any other UDOs when I was researching other people's processes.
In my opinion, and I agree with all of it, none of it, it should be in the UDO.
Okay,
It's administrative, it's procedural. The village clerk should have this in her administration procedures or something. Because first of all, if I was on the council, I would say, well, this council might want to do it that way, but the next council might not. And they don't have to. They can pick the people if they have to for a while without our input. And there might be arguments on their part that they don't want our input.
is that the best for our community though? Is that what
Well,
this board wants to
No,
recommend?
but in this procedure is fine, and I'm glad the council's doing it. But what I'm saying is.
I don't know that the council will do it. We're
Is the
saying,
law, it's
yeah.
a big thing already, and to make it bigger with procedural things that aren't law, it's not a regulation, and I don't think should be. I would just suggest that, hey, let's put this in writing, but make it an administrative procedure to be followed by the zoning administrator. Especially, you know, with the maximums of 5 business days and 30, and then you're gonna put that in UDO, just might not happen. But again, I agree, that's a good procedure, and I'm glad they're doing it.
Who is this for? Is this,
It basically is to set out a actual procedure for filling seats on the Planning and Zoning Board.
So it's
Because
for-
we don't have one right now. There is no procedure.
so
Because
it's anybody in general?
yeah, it's basically for anyone involved in the process of, so it would be the village clerk or the village administrator. Actually, the role is different, but the same. So I mean, I don't know which one would be. I guess the village administrator would be part of that. Certainly the village council would be part of that. I think what my goal in putting this in the UDO was ensuring that a process was followed. Because who's gonna make anyone follow any process going forward? And as we've seen in this village council, there was no process followed. It was just kind of willy-nilly and
I mean, if this is for potential applicants, so they understand the process, and you know, maybe it's for
I think
the-
for everybody, it's for us, for them,
Yeah.
for the
But
village
I mean, it
council,
just creates
for,
clarity on how the process works, so whether it's in the UDO or separate, you know, I don't know where the most relevance is to have this inserted.
I think my only, my disagreement with not putting it in the UDO is there is no way to enforce without the UDO.
Yeah.
There's no way to enforce there's no way for this, to say this is how things are done. There's no way to tell the community this is how this is done, because policies and procedures that are in the village, you know, in the employee manuals, those aren't public information.
Yeah.
Nobody knows if they're following or not following them. So that was kind of my hope, that we would set out something that could be followed, even if it was less strict, just to give a guidance, because I feel like without it, you know, we've been without members since, I don't wanna say July, because we lost our member in June, so applications should have been, you know, put on the board in June or July, and then we lost another member in August, so I'm gonna say September there, because that's not fair to include August. So I believe September is when the notice for, you know, board seats went up, or maybe even October. And then we weren't notified of any applicants of any kind. When I do know that, there were applications in November. End of November is when I started asking for applications. I was told there were applications, and then when I asked for those applications, because when I was brought on, the way that Councilman Gilroy ran things, she got all the applications, just like we did this, she contacted the applicants, we all came in for interviews, every one of the board members, it actually took place during the day, and we were in the boardroom, the kitchen, in here, like, everybody was in a different space, and then each member got to have an interview, just like we did tonight. And then they collectively got together and made their recommendation, and that went to the village council just the way we just did it. And that was a great process for two reasons. One, it keeps us from being without members for long periods of time because it's an efficient process. And two, I think that the village council simply has a much larger footprint on what they have to consider. It takes them a lot longer to do anything. Because it takes so long for them to, get everything organized. I mean, 2 meetings ago, I was sitting in the front row at the village council meeting, and we had 2 members that didn't even have the same list of applicants. One had one list of applicants, one had another list of applicants. So that was January. So that's, here we are, that's 3 months in, or maybe that was February. So that was 3 months in, that still nothing had really been discussed or was able to be done, not because I don't think they intended to have our seats be open that long, just they don't have time.
Yeah.
They just have too much other things on their plate. So my intent of writing this for the UDO was to set out a policy and see if we could, make that be a norm going forward.
But if they don't, it goes back to what we've complained about for a while, if they don't want this to go in there, then they just will
Correct.
say no.
Correct.
And it seems like, and I don't know with the new board, that's there, but I don't think, like, this is good, but if they just might blow it off again, and.
We can't, I mean, well, they could do that with anything we
Right.
recommend, so we have to have a positive foot forward on anything we recommend. We are an advisory board, it is our job to recommend things. If they don't wanna do it, they don't have to, because they are the voting board, they're the one that put it in place. I can certainly see what Mick is saying, that, we can advise for policy as well. So we can advise them we could go 2 ways with this. We could say, we recommend they put this in the UDO, or we can say that we recommend that they make this a policy for how applications are received. I mean, we can certainly look at it and take some things out if you think it's too stiff. If the timing is too tight in there, that might be a little too militant.
So
But
I
we
don't
can
have
recommend a policy.
I don't have any problem with the content, because really what it's doing to me is creating an awareness of how the process works. So the discussion is not necessarily the content, it's where does it go,
Right.
right?
And there are some legalities, I think what Mick was bringing up is, not something I really considered as far as putting in the UDO. I didn't have a problem with doing that, but then, what if they don't get it done in 5 days? Then they've broken the law. What if they don't do it in 30 days or don't, maybe that is a little too stiff.
Broken
But,
the law?
well, I mean, the UDO is a legal document. They have to abide by that UDO. That's pretty much, that's a legal that's why when we recommend things, a lot of times it doesn't get codified and put into the UDO for a long time, because we have to have a public meeting. That's a legality behind it, and then part of that public meeting is getting the public input of what, all of those recommendations we make. Usually they'll have 1 or 2 public meetings throughout the year. None of that goes into the UDO until they have the public meeting, there's public notice, and this would be, part of that. We could recommend it to be policy, for their, I don't know what you would call it, I guess, selection process that they have in their back office, but I don't know that they have a policy in the back office.
Yeah.
Mick, you would know that more than me, because you've been mayor, but, is there a policy right now of how they select members, or how the process works?
This selection process by the board, I do not believe that's in the policy or procedures manual. But that, to me, again, that's where I think it would belong. I mean, what's happened over the last 6 months, I think it would have happened if this language was in the UDO. Yeah, to be fair. So I would just recommend, and I agree with you, I'd take out the first phrase and start with the following process, and I'd take out the last word, especially if it's going in the administrative procedures manual, if that's the recommendation. And then that's where I would tell them. If they don't have one, or if it's not up to date, that might cause them to do that.
Okay.
It's just my opinion. That, as you just mentioned, the UDO is law and regulation to the greatest degree possible. And there are some things in there that are policy or background information, but the less we do that, the better, in my mind, because it gets so cumbersome. You've seen like Southern Pines UDO, some of those that grow and grow and grow. If we don't need it, I don't want it in there.
There's nothing, it seems like though, there's nothing in here to prevent what happened.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of talk about how things went, and it wasn't right the way my personal opinion was it wasn't right the way it was done and the way it was handled. But what sets that, what governs that? What sets the rules to how board members are placed, timing,
There is no rule right now, and it's at the discretion of whomever. I really don't even know where the buck would stop there, to be honest, because you have a couple different people that are kind of disconnected in there. You have the administrator that receives the applications, and you have the mayor who gets the applications, and then she gives them to the village council, and this is just the way things have gone right this particular time. It's so broadly different from the only other reference I have, and that's whenever we came on the board.
Right.
And that process, just timing-wise, was far more efficient. It was a kinder process to the applicants. I can tell you, just as an applicant, I put my how long did your application go before you actually had a conversation with somebody, anybody? An email, anything?
I forget. I don't think it was long.
I was a week. So I had my application in a week. You were and when your application came in, we actually handled yours. So I have 3 separate,
Yeah.
yours and Deborah's came to me, and the process was followed the same way as it had been. And whenever I came on the board, I received your application. I reached out by email first and just said, hey, can you come in and maybe have a conversation with all of us and get to know us? And it just seemed like a much quicker, much more efficient process. When I put my application in, Mary responded. It was like a week. She had the application. She responded to me, hey, we have a couple seats, so what we're gonna do is, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna get everybody together, we're gonna individually interview, and then we'll make our recommendation, which is what we did tonight. And it just worked a lot smoother. I mean, here we have nuts to bolts in a week and a half.
Yeah.
We got the a council recommendation for us to look at these applications and to make a recommendation at the last village council meeting, which was last Thursday or last Tuesday, last Tuesday. I got the applications in my hand that night, and then we hit the road running, and here we are, already making a recommendation a week later. Much simpler, much more efficient process.
Yeah.
And not to detract from our village council, I think they each work really hard, but the breadth of what they have to manage is much, much larger than what we do. We have time to clear our schedule and go, okay, this is what we need to do to make it more efficient for them so that they can do their thing. Because at the end of the day, they still also may do their own due diligence and call these applicants and do interviews themselves. But at least they understand what our input is and they've asked for it.
Yeah.
What is the process to get the rules and regulations, whatever, I don't know what the proper term is, to
The
get
employee
it
manual.
codified, yeah, to get it in that the council, like how do you get an amendment in, like, to change the way things are done? You know, that, if we wanted this to get in there.
To policies and procedures
Right.
and not the UDO.
Right, so if we wanted to get this before the council and have this codified in, so that this is the way it's done, what's the procedures?
When you say codified, do you mean in the UDO?
Well, I
You
would
mean just
get,
put into the employee manual, like,
how,
this
well,
is
where
how-
would this, so cause I'm confused, because where, if we wanna change the rules to get, say we want this in there, and we give it to the council, and they just say, and I'm just being negative again, but devil's advocate, but if they just say, well, we don't care, you know, we're not even gonna look at that. What's the procedure to force their hand to have something said or done, or, a hearing, whatever, to make this into our, I'll call it the Constitution, or, cause that's what I know,
we
so
can't
that's.
force their hand in any
I mean,
way.
but-
As just mentioned, if you want it in the UDO, we would make a recommendation that section 21.2 be amended as follows, adding this language
Okay,
to that section. Then they have to have a legislative hearing that the public, or public hearing, which is legislative in nature. I
Right,
should say.
okay.
So the public, we notice the public in a newspaper of wide distribution 15 days before, I don't know.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
it's a whole big
Limits.
thing.
right, I understand
So
that.
people, because anytime the UDO is amended, you have to have a public hearing and legislative procedures, meaning anybody can say whatever they want
Okay,
to the council.
but the council has to
And a
have,
recommendation from this board, and then it's up to them whether they want to add it or amend it further and add something different, or so from there.
so then I think that what you've done here, it needs to go before them.
Either
And-
way,
Right,
if we're gonna ask them to put in the UDO, it would go before them, but it would also go before them if we want it to be put in the employee manual as it's within our purview under our general statutes for us to be an administrative policy recommender.
But what-
This would be an administrative policy.
what would you say the handbook?
The administrative policies, the employee manual.
Well,
yeah.
how does that govern anything? Like, trying to figure out how to say
Well, it's
it.
like, it's an SOP. You know,
Okay.
in almost any business, you have SOPs, and the village administrator and or the village clerk and the zoning administrator have certain procedures and SOPs that they should be following.
And I don't know that she
when
has
there's-
one for this process.
Exactly, so
At
this
all.
could be added, and that would, in some ways, at least get it in writing. Again, I don't think it has been, at least I certainly wasn't aware of it when I was on the council. But I'll be blunt, if somebody's not doing their job, it doesn't matter if it's in the UDO or not. And when there's a vacancy on the planning and zoning board, there are certain people that are responsible to get it moving and if we have applications, get it going. And
So-
it's the village clerk / zoning administrator and the mayor. So,
So how do you enforce that? So if they're not doing their job, how is it enforced? What could be done
through the vote,
you mean just by elections?
yes.
I don't get one of those, by the way.
So if somebody's not following the rules and procedures laid out, there seems to be no consequences for their actions. How do you force the consequences?
If this happened again, I would hope we would, the chairman of the planning and zoning board can talk to the mayor, can talk to the council.
Right.
And say, hey, we need those
Wh-
applications.
which was
We
done.
need them now.
That
Yeah.
was done
Right.
multiple times and it was ignored.
Right, so
I don't
that-
have I don't have any other recourse.
Right.
So that's why, that's where it gets confusing to me, because we've had this discussion before, and it seems like people, and I'm not gonna say names, but it seems like people have just went against what the rules are, so to say. And that's why I'm saying, if there's not a rule anywhere in here that says how to proceed, then it's left up to just, you can do whatever you want, because there is nothing in here to hold people accountable. But if there is something in there, if it's in the handbook or if it's in the UDO, then somebody has to be held accountable for their actions. And if things were not followed correctly, and people just get away with it, then, our form of government is not a very good form of government. And there's gotta be consequences, and I understand voting and elections have consequences for your actions, but how are people going to vote for something or someone if we don't know what the rules and regulations are and what authority these people have to do what they're doing? The elections don't matter if people don't understand how we are governed. And if being governed says that you have to follow these rules and you don't do it, then there's gotta be consequences for those actions. And that's why I think to have it put in somewhere that it says this is the way you, but it seems like we're beating ourselves on the head, because if the council doesn't wanna do it, they're not gonna do it.
I have a recommendation, because I think we should do what we do best. And let's research our other UDOs and see where they land on how deep they go into their appointment terms of members, like, or appointments and terms. Like, do they go in depth like this? And then how do they go in depth? Do they have things timed out? Is the timing of this, like, the portion where it says 5 business days, 30 days, are those part of that too, or are they a little bit more vague about how it's, it's not a specific days wise, because Mick's right, it is illegal,
Right.
is a legal thing.
But
So-
what's legal? What are we saying is legal? If they didn't follow the rules,
If it's in the UDO, they have to follow it.
but it's not.
That's right.
So then if it's not in there, then
It's
it
at
has to
the
be in the
discretion of
handbook,
the
or
member.
if it's not in the handbook, then basically they can do what they want. For this.
I agree.
And
And
that
I'm
needs-
hoping that doesn't happen in the future, because why would we continue to let each village council and each mayor and each clerk reinvent the wheel every time?
You're right.
Why not give guidance? It's in our purview to give that administrative recommendation.
Right, so that's why I asked the question is, how do you get something put on an agenda? Is there a way for the public to say, we want this in there? And because we understand, whatever it is, you're not doing what the village wants. And we need some kind of rules and regulations on how, the zoning and planning board is run. But there's nothing here. So we, as a village, want this in there. What's the process to get that? Is it only through the council? If the council says we don't wanna do it, then there's no recourse? Or is there a way for the village, somebody from the village to say, I go back to this, I just know constitution-wise, but, an amendment, we want an amendment in there to change our bylaws or constitution, whatever. Is there an avenue for people, the village, citizens, to get this done, if the council doesn't want to do it?
Public comment. I mean, anybody can get up at a council meeting and tell them what they think and what they should do, and make comment. But,
What's the governing, so Mike, I guess, what's the governing authority for the village of Foxfire?
That's the council.
So, but is there a document? Is it just like the Magna Carta and we just go by what it is, or is there?
there's a village charter that created Foxfire Village in 1977, and we have a code, a general code,
Okay,
about all our police powers and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And the UDO is part of that general code, which is specifically with regard to land use and zoning.
Okay, so then how does something get into the UDO? So it seems like that's our only,
Same procedure we
It's the
just
same
talked about.
recommendation.
so just recommendations, and if they,
Recommendation.
and if they say no, if they don't want it, then the recourse is again elections, like you said, but the people need to understand this, the village residents need to understand that this is a problem and this needs to be put in, so then it's like a campaign to get this out there
Well,
about.
that's why we have public comment, so that
Correct.
we can make recommendations if we find it necessary. But someone can get up here and say, I want you to do A.
Right.
And we can say, we're not interested in recommending that,
Okay.
and we don't have to. But they can make that comment. And the same with the council. Public, they have our recommendation, but they don't have to take it.
Okay.
And then the public can comment at a council meeting as well.
I think, with all due respect to everybody, I think we're overcomplicating this. I mean, all we're trying to do is figure out where to put this thing, right?
Yeah, I think that was why I was saying we should maybe, I only looked at one other UDO in there, in the same section where it shows their composition, their purview, all of that stuff. It had that in the appointment terms of members because it talks about the appointment, how that appointment process works, because they have it out there for their citizens. But I think it would be beneficial to look at other UDOs and other examples and come back with a little bit more research. We don't have to recommend this right now. This is something that, because we were talking about the way this process has gone and it's fresh in our minds, it was a great place to start this conversation. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be an ended conversation tonight. We can go back and do a little bit more research and see, is this really going in people's UDOs? If not, and we find that no one has anything like this in their UDOs, only this one outlier, then maybe we do, instead of, if we all agree we're gonna make this recommendation at any, regardless, but where do we put it? Maybe we do decide to recommend this for the administrative employee manual and not the UDO. Maybe we do come back and go, hey, everybody else has this in their UDOs, why do we not? Then we recommend to have it in the UDO. But that would give us a broader understanding of it.
So what other municipalities have done, as well as, if it goes in the UDO, it's legally binding, right?
It should be, but,
So
I mean, are we gonna sue if they don't follow the process?
Well, that's the thing.
But I will say, for the community, because the community doesn't have the employee manual. The employee, the community has the UDO, and that's how they know what should and shouldn't be done.
No.
So this is not only a legal document, it's an agreement in the community. When they come to that public meeting and they go, we support that, put it in the UDO, that's them putting their stamp on it and going, okay, I want to be able to see this process going forward, because I remember when it didn't work efficiently, and I remember when it did, and I feel like I do want that in my UDO. Or, all the recommendations we make, they could stand up in public meeting and say, hey, I don't think that has any, just like Mick said, I don't think that has a place in our UDO, but maybe you put that in an employee manual somewhere.
Yeah.
That's where the general public has their say, is at that public meeting. In the meantime, I think we need a broader understanding of what other UDOs are doing, and this is something that we can recommend after April. We can come to our April meeting and go, what did you guys find? It's a simple conversation at that point. We've already agreed, maybe starting at the following and then ending with chapter on that, just to take any frivolous language out, anything that just isn't absolutely, what should be said. And then two, maybe taking a look at that first item where it's a little bit specific. I have a tendency to be a little bit specific and
Good.
militant about things sometimes, and I like a good date of when things should be done. I like a good schedule, but that might not be what other people are doing in their UDOs. It might be a little bit more broad in their process.
I mean, again, I'm ambivalent where it goes, as long as people know that it creates an awareness of how the process works.
But general
If this goes in the
enforceability,
UDO
it's
and
gonna be the
legally
community that
binding,
enforces
then,
it, yeah.
you don't want who wants to get into that discussion?
Right?
Oh, you broke the rule here.
not to beat a dead horse, but we could also just recommend, we recommend you put this in either the UDO and just leave it to them.
That is a good idea, actually.
And the other thing, if we have it in, as an addendum to our meeting procedures or something, and, or if it, whether it's in the administrative manual or in the UDO, if we know that as a zoning board, when we have a vacancy, and we know we do, we put.
We have a process to follow.
And we, as Rick is saying, we have something to say, hey,
This is how it's supposed to go.
zoning administrative, should have been done already, or whatever.
And I'm not putting this like to the zoning administrator, because I don't think that the blame on this belongs to her.
I'm not.
I feel like in the absence of a process, what process do you follow? Whatever you have time for, and whatever your village council or your mayor is saying, and then if they don't have time to tell you what to do, then what do? You do whatever you got time for, which is probably a little bit of figure it here, village council, figure it out, it's your job anyway.
I think precedent is always, like you said earlier, it's been precedent, this is the way it's been done.
Yeah.
And it has worked. And it's when it doesn't work that now you create problems, because it might be a moot point, and it might just go back to the way it was, and then it'll be fine. But to stop this from happening again in the future, it should be written somewhere. It should be in there somehow that this is the way the procedure works, especially for a government, entity like Foxfire Village is. It should be in there somehow. And
Yeah.
Either way, but if, again, it goes back to, even if it's in there, even if it's put in there, and either or, if it's in the handbook or in the UDO, if somebody doesn't follow it, if somebody just says, I'm not doing it, there has to be some kind of consequences. So I believe that you have to put in there, and it might be somewhere in here, like, if this is not followed, these are the consequences. So if these are our rules, these are our regulations, and the consequences of not following this is whatever,
I think that goes beyond our purview in
Right.
that portion, because
No, I know.
if it's in an employee manual, there are pieces, there are dereliction of duty pieces
Okay,
in there that
right,
would take
okay.
care of that, because this would just be another duty.
Okay, that's fine.
And as far as if it's in the UDO and not followed, I think the community can more than handle that and go, hey, I see that it's in the UDO, that's the way it should be done, that's the way it needs to be done. And I think our residents are more than capable, and they do that on a regular basis, to keep us all in line in what we should be doing. I actually like the idea, if we're gonna recommend this, why not, if nobody has a problem with the wording and how it's done, they're gonna let us know what they're gonna keep or not keep, or amend, or whatever. Why not just go ahead and give it to the village council and say, we recommend this for either the UDO or the employee manual. You decide where to put it, because ultimately it is their decision if they even keep it and where they keep it at.
I think it's a good idea, because I really, personally, it doesn't matter if Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen, whatever, has it in theirs or not. This is something that we should have. And
Yeah.
let them look at ours one day and go, oh, look what Foxfire did. And we should have that in
I
ours,
like that,
So
yeah.
that's the way.
We could be a
leaders, not,
trendsetter.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. the
I agree,
trendsetters.
I agree.
So,
Okay, well, so let's put it to a vote, so,
Can
go
I-
ahead.
If we're gonna vote on it tonight, can I, looking at paragraph 3.
Yes.
I would recommend that we change, after the apostrophe, meeting apostrophe, then recommend apostrophe by majority vote candidates to the council.
Yep, select is the wrong word, you're right.
So we read, following the interviews, the P&C board shall collectively review the applications and interview outcomes in regular or special meeting, then recommend by majority vote candidates to the council.
Excellent, that is a better wording, I like that better. What about this piece up here that you were concerned about earlier, about the setting such a hard deadline on days? what's the consensus
No,
on
let's
that?
give it to them.
Just give it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they
I
may
mean,
look at that and go, same
if they
thing
go
you
up
said,
10 days,
we're not gonna be able to meet,
no.
what if we
Right.
can't meet it, you know,
And
okay.
that, but that's more input from the village clerk if she can do that or not.
All right,
I mean,
well,
remember, the village clerk is also the zoning administrator, is also almost all
All the
the admin
things.
for Foxfire Village, so.
yep.
And even if they change it and make it 60 days or, 90 days.
I think just having a structure is
I mean, but
fabulous,
if
but
they
I don't
wanna
want 90
change
days.
it, I mean, you're right, I mean, and then it's.
But it is in their
Right,
purview, and they
right,
will,
they do.
you know, they have the, they have the decision to either keep it, throw it all the way out, or make changes to it and then accept the
I think
recommendation.
that the way you have it there is fine.
All right, so, let's, I make a motion to bring this to vote. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None opposed. All right, and I think we have a little bit of time left. Nick, would you like to do your piece? And then, at the end of your stuff that we're talking about, I moved right past the public comment, and I wanna give
Oh.
everybody an opportunity at the end to do that, but go ahead,
Okay.
that was my fault.
Get your toothpicks out.
Oh, boy.
Because you'll need, no, what I'd like to, I took a look at the table of authorized uses, which we've been talking about, and we know there are a lot of little problems. I have 19 notes already. But before we get into the minutia, I wanted to talk a little bit about whether or not we should have some language after we introduce the table of authorized uses, that it's subordinate to the written words in specific sections.
I have to agree with that wholeheartedly.
That's usually the case. These graphs, as we've proven, somehow X's and A's jump from one box to another during various times. So I think it's important to have some language like that in there. And then I'm not sure if we've gone back and forth, do we want blank boxes to mean it's prohibited? Or do we want to specifically
No,
say
X's.
X is prohibited, so every box
Yeah.
needs to be marked?
That has been
Clear.
voted on.
Okay.
It was voted on in May or June. I can go back in the minutes and find out where that was approved. I wanna say it was either June or July or May. I'll go back and look. But that's already been taken care of. It just hasn't been corrected yet. I don't know if that has to go, I mean, we've made the recommendation for it and it was approved by council. So I'm not sure what
Okay.
needs to does that portion need to go to public comment to correct something that should have been done already? It literally says on there, X's are, we just voted to make the
Okay.
correction. So that has already been
I'm
done
sure.
and was given to the village administrator and given to the village council, and they've approved that to be fixed. So I'm not sure why that hasn't been done. Before we get into that table of authorized uses, did you want to go into that Senate Bill
Oh.
587?
Sure, I did. I'll pass this around afterwards. The mayor talked about this and was concerned, I think, if I read her correctly, concerned about this new definition for nonconformities, and that it was going to create problems. But about downzoning. The downzoning portion of Senate Bill, the proposed Senate Bill 587, reinserts into the law that downzoning initiated by the local government is permitted, is the way I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right now, the current law, downzoning means a zoning ordinance that affects any area, and they took out local government initiated. So, for instance, our recent downzoning of RA5 could not happen under the current law,
Correct.
happen under the old. But this, although it defines nonconformities rather tortuously, it puts back government initiated downzoning. which is a good thing.
I was gonna say, that's not concerning.
It's not.
Yeah.
And now the question I have is, who would otherwise initiate a downzoning? I don't picture that. The nonconformities, which basically, the definition is horrible, because it uses the term nonconformity twice.
Where is this bill at? Is it in legal right now, or where is it in the
Second
process?
edition, I've forgotten if it's a second reading or not, but Senate Bill 587.
So is, when I asked you before about definition of non-conforming, does non-conforming mean non-conforming to the conditions?
To the current regulations. So
Current
what happens
regulations,
is, I build a house that's 35 feet tall, or 40 feet tall.
Mhm.
And the zoning, a new zoning regulation comes in and says they're limited to 35 feet. That's a nonconformity.
Okay,
Or a use. I
Sure.
might be using a property and then zoning changes and you can't do that use anymore. That's a nonconformity.
Mhm.
This bill seeks to vest all those nonconformities,
Hmm.
which was always done. For instance, when we did the downzoning, we grandfathered any property
Everything else.
that was less than RA5.
Yeah.
Well, that's
You
fair.
would grandfather if you had a gas station somewhere and
Yeah.
all the zoning
That's
changed
been the North
around
Carolina
it,
standard since
we would-
the 50s.
So that to me is not a big concern.
Yeah.
No. It has been referred to rules and committees. It has passed first reading. And that wording, that, where you were saying it's a terrible definition, and that may change, but I think you're right, that the scope of it's not gonna change. I think they're meaning to put back in there that the downzoning
Right.
purview goes back to the community, to the municipality.
Yeah, which I think, again, is good, because we would have always
So why is
grandfathered.
I think the whole county's up in
an
arms for
existing
this.
use. Now, the one thing that this does is it expands nonconformity a little bit, the way I read it, because it says, it may continue until intentionally and voluntarily discontinued. So it could change owners, and I think under the old law, nonconformity would have disappeared.
But this keeps it.
But this keeps it. So in other words,
But
if
that's
I have
good.
the gas station and it's now changed all around me, I can keep the gas station and I can sell it to Kim and he can keep the gas station and continue to use it, even though that wouldn't be allowed in that zoning district now.
Yeah,
Which again, pretty much makes sense.
yeah, I mean, ex post
It
facto
can't be
isn't
expanded.
fair.
For instance, the gas station might not be able to become 12 pump instead of 6 pumps, things like that. So I think this legislation is,
Does that apply only
It's-
to the
it's good.
size, the zoning size, or does that also apply to, let's say, there's some beautification standards that have changed? Does that also apply to that?
it applies to lot, parcel, tract of land, a structure, a use of a property,
But it does not
any
apply,
dwelling, accessory building, accessory structure, outdoor lighting, fence, wall, sign, off-street parking, vehicular surface area, or private access point.
so the fencing is one that would be of a concern, but everything else, we still, I mean, if, let's say, for instance, some mature plantings, language changed in the UDO after the maintenance building went in, with Foxfire Country Club. They've changed hands, that wouldn't be a grandfather thing, and if they put something in, around there, it has to be mature. So that doesn't change that language. There's like beautification standards, mature plantings, things of that nature.
It's a good question. I'm not sure I followed, the landscaping has become more required, landscaping.
A landscaping
new
plan
development
was not
regulation.
there, right, landscaping plan wasn't there, and, the request for, on commercial properties, a mature plant, and we've got that defined out in the UDO now, what a mature plant is.
Yeah, I don't think you might argue under this law that they don't have to comply with that.
Got it, okay. That's
Even if
pretty
you did
interesting, I mean,
change
that's,
things.
okay, so they're basically saying they're protecting
Yeah, they're vesting.
non-conforming, they're vesting those properties. Okay, which really, I mean, it does affect us in a small way, but not, I mean, we don't have a tremendous amount of,
Right, it's not huge.
no,
Um,
okay. What was the, do you remember what I heard it, but it was so quick, and the concern wasn't really, defined well.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I know
if
there
it
was a county
concerned about the
meeting that the mayor went
nonconformities
to,
Or the
yeah.
downzoning, but I mean, overall, if we have that, the possibility of downzoning, it seems to me that that's a bigger thing than nonconformity.
I was gonna say, we
Because as I
just
say,
went
we
through
always
it,
accept
I don't think we wanna go
nonconformity.
through it again. I don't think that, I mean, it was a hard process to start with when it was, seen in a different light. It's certainly, you know, our name has been said on the state legislature floor a multitude of times because of that downzoning. So, you know, we've been called out by name, in the state legislature because of that downzoning, so.
But if they do a little more research, they'd find out that most of the residents in our ETJ were supportive of that downzoning.
Correct,
But that's another
right.
meeting. So we just need to be aware of this if it passes, and I may at least talk to the mayor, just ask her what
Yeah,
the
what,
concern is.
yeah, I was gonna say, that'd be a good conversation to have, just to find out what exactly, the concern is and what that, should look like to us, like what are we, and I know they'll give direction, you know, they'll give us direction from the council as far as what they want us to be concerned with for it, but it'd be good to have a leg up on it and at least be knowledgeable prior to, and have a good background if they do have a request for us according to this. As far as okay, so now moving to the table of authorized uses. You said you have 19.
That's just a first look, that's why I was gonna say, I'm not gonna,
You know what?
bore you with all that, but,
Yeah, well, not that you wouldn't be boring us, but.
we're gonna have, I'll come up with some straw man language about making the table of authorized uses subordinate to the specific written sections.
I think that's super important.
And then we'll have the X's and the A's. The one thing I wanted to ask her and get you to thinking about is, I think we should also have those marked that require a special use permit. So that you know, right, if you're looking for the authorized table of uses and whatever it is, looking to do, but it requires a special use permit, if that was marked as it's allowed but special use permit, that would be helpful.
Do you have a recommendation on what that would look like? Like what that extra mark, would it be like a asterisk or
No, I
something?
wouldn't put an extra mark, I just put SP.
Okay,
SP,
so that
special use
instead of
permit means it's authorized.
okay,
And
I see
with
what you're
that,
saying.
And A is authorized without limitations or without restrictions of the special use permit.
I like that direction, that, and then X is for no's.
And
Which
then
we should have in
If you
there.
go through, each one of these, there's just, again, I don't know if we wanna go through, I mean, me just reading to you without you taking a look, I think, single manufactured homes, I looked up that definition, so that was my first note, I think that's good to go. In multifamily, box, if 3 or more dwelling units, there's 2 identical cells, 2 identical boxes, I don't,
We get
one
rid of
should just be
one.
get rid of. Bed and breakfast home,
That is a short-term rental.
right, whether that's a short-term rental or a home,
It's not
it's
considered
not,
as.
and we don't intend it to be, but I don't think that's very clear by this. The Whispering Pines calls it homestay, and I know we weren't going into short-term rental, but interestingly enough, just as an aside, they just wiped them all out. They
For
grandfathered them of
the
20.
bed and breakfast?
No, short-term rental.
Oh, they just grandfathered they took
They
them out?
grandfathered the existing ones they had in 2020 and said no
Huh.
short-term rentals in our planning jurisdiction.
Wow.
And they have not been sued.
Is that legal?
And well, it is under the current law.
Wow.
But anyway, so, bed and breakfast
And
and how they're defined, I think should be made clear. A lot of these things are gonna lead us to, of course, other portions of the UDO that will need to be changed and or amended.
So, sorry, were you gonna recap all these in an email to all
Well,
of us, or?
I don't know if an email, what I'd like to do is, just kinda, I can go through these without going through them all tonight. But those are the kind of things I'm looking at,
When you're pulling those
and
things,
maybe I can just
do a
create
full
a new one
recommendation.
and a whole recommendation. But I'd love your help. I mean,
Yeah.
take a look at that thing
Yeah.
and see
Definitely.
where your inconsistencies
But
are.
knowing where you are and what you've already found is helpful too, for the group.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, look, we have retail sales or service and repair, there are no marks, that's easy. Electric battery charging stations, I mean, what district should they be allowed in? Recreational district, municipal zoning district, if we put one out here right now, it's not, so.
But if we got a grant for that, I'm just future thinking, if law enforcement ends up with an electric car at some point, we probably would have a station here. To me, it would make sense in the recreation district and in the MUN, but that's thinking super forward.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with that.
Consumer goods sales or service sell, it's not allowed anywhere right now, would appear. Tobacco not allowed in the village business district. I don't know if that was on purpose, like tobacco or these vape stores.
Oh, I think that was on purpose,
and
There's a
it
yeah.
might
difference
be on
between
purpose.
tobacco and vape, though, right?
Exactly, like a cigar store wanted to open up here to sell the golfers.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not
our
sure.
store up here has vapes.
Well, yeah,
And
well,
big
that's right,
neon
I think
sign
it's doesn't it?
that
Yeah.
says they have vapes.
So,
I actually made a complaint to the owner of the store because I have a 14-year-old, but it wasn't that long ago that I had a 5-year-old, and when we walked in that store the first time they had that counter up, it looked like candy, because it was like Fruity Pebbles and all of these things. Those are against North Carolina law. You can't have candy things at eye level for children that are illegal for them to have.
Is it a separate store? Do you have to go into it separately?
Now they've moved things, that whole counter has changed.
Where is that?
General store?
At the general store. They
Really?
have vapes and stuff, and when they first bought the store and they first put the vapes in, it was all in that front glass.
Mhm.
And so it looked like a candy store, but it was all vapes. That's all illegal for a child, and they're all like, they've got little cartoons on them, they've got little like Fruity Pebbles, all the different flavors. They're very colorful. Those are all protected in the North Carolina statute. You cannot advertise those to children. Children are in that store, you need to put those in a place just like you can't have cigarettes in the very front counter where children can, or on a low shelf. Those are, back shelf items. And so that was a little bit of a learning curve, I think, for the management, but that's something that we should be, aware of. And if it says they can't have tobacco, I mean, what if somebody brought a cigar store in? That's kind of fancy.
right.
I don't know.
Another convenience stores specifically without fuel pumps, or I forget now if it's allowed or not, but gas stations with or without a convenience store are permitted in the village business. There's a disconnect there between
Yeah.
those two. Cosmetic and beauty supplies, not permitted in the village business district. Again, if somebody wants to sell hairbrushes and twisties, I don't know why we would say no. Community center, we need to look at other places where it can go, such as the village business district or the recreational district. That reminds me too, for PUDs, or conditional zoning districts, I think we're way too restrictive in the authorized uses, because those are negotiated. The PUD, we may find that all sorts of things under the correct conditions or negotiations might go
What does
in
the
PUD.
UDO say about, I mean, and I see that there's a disconnect in the UDO and this table of authorized uses, which should not be, but sounds like it's a pretty good disconnect. But what's the UDO, I mean, now we're talking about not only matching it, I think, all right, just for clarity, I think we need to match it up and make it match the UDO before we have some of these more broad discussions about what needs to change in the UDO for both the authorized uses and the UDO. So like what you're talking about, the beauty store. So that's a whole different conversation than making it match and correcting any problem in the table of authorized uses. Like, we're just trying to make the table of authorized uses match the UDO. Once we get there, then we can start looking at, okay, should we make a recommendation to change the UDO to make that allowable? Does that make sense?
I think I understand.
I'm just saying, let's finite, like, nail down what matches in this UDO and what does not. What do we have in the existing UDO before we start changing the UDO to maybe start allowing things that aren't really allowed in the table or the UDO? Because it sounded like the UDO doesn't allow beauty supplies and the table of authorized uses don't allow beauty supplies. I have no problem with beauty supplies. I like beauty supplies, but before we start having that broader conversation of what businesses are allowable, not allowable, let's really nail down what is in the UDO and how does it not match that table of authorized uses. That make that's what I think I'm just kind of saying. Let's correct the
First
table of
step.
authorized. First step, correct the table of authorized uses and make it match the UDO existing. And then we can have a broader conversation of things that we don't necessarily think the UDO should have, or allowances that maybe we should, maybe recommend later.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Well, further discussions, I hope. Fitness and athletic clubs, and I'm again talking about districts that they're not allowed in. Right now, it's not allowed in a municipal district. If we allowed that,
Is that in the UDO? How is it?
well,
Is it
again, no, I mean, some of these things are gonna be UDO
changes?
changes or
Got it.
recommendations.
Got it.
But as I go through the table of authorized uses.
Those are
I mean,
excellent
eventually,
ways to find
we
those
have-
things.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have to find, what doesn't make sense? I mean, again, when you're talking about a planned unit development, which is negotiated with the village and the developer, all sorts of uses and things are possibly appropriate.
I agree with that. And it's all negotiated. I agree with
And
that.
right now, all those things are prohibited in a PUD.
Yeah.
That's the mark we have.
But that's not what our UDO says. That doesn't match the UDO.
Right.
So I agree with that. I agree. I mean, I think nail down your changes and then kind of separate them into two categories. Things that don't match the UDO and need to be corrected. And then there's a secondary layer of conversations that need to be had
Right.
because the UDO might need to change because it doesn't make sense. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay, that was
Well,
probably a
see,
better way
some
to say it.
things are in the table of authorized uses that are not directly addressed in the UDO, in the written sections of the UDO.
Then
I
it
think.
shouldn't be in the table of
Since
authorized
like the utility and well sites, I'm not aware of that in the UDO, but maybe it is. But
Well, I
right
know
now, they're
there's one that's
restricted.
about chickens. There's a number on chickens that doesn't exist in the UDO.
Yeah. And right now, utility and well sites are restricted to the municipal zoning district.
Utility and well sites, and I remember this conversation, that was led by Councilwoman Gilroy, and I was on the board at that time when we set that out. And the reason we did that was because we felt that all future well sites would eventually be MUN. So once a well site happens, it would be moved into the MUN zone, regardless of where it's at, because it would come under the purview of municipal. Does that make sense?
It does, but it forces us to do that
Correct.
before, really.
I think that that's how they've been,
Have
that's,
they done?
that's
Okay.
what's been, and like with the new well site, when they purchased that piece of property, it was rezoned to MUN. Or should have been. That was the idea behind making, well sites and anything that belonged to the municipality should be zoned municipal. So it's under the purview of the village, of Foxfire Village Town Hall. So well sites, anything, any maintenance things,
Right.
stuff like that should be under MUN because it belongs to Foxfire Village.
I think there are some other things that you could discuss about that, like
Yeah.
an old well site that we have off of the Woodland Circle Extension is closed down. It was then sold. If you made it municipal, which it had never been zoning district, then you'd have to have another public hearing to change it back to RA5 or 40 to sell it. So there's, it depends on what the council wants to do. It's an
Yeah.
extra step.
I agree
Because
with
if that property up on the corner was originally RA 30 or 40 right there, our new well site. I don't know if it's been changed.
And
If
the
it has
idea
been,
was that they were gonna change those over to MUNs, and I understand the changing back, but there should be a broader conversation with the council when they sell a piece of property like that. It needs to be known that it was municipal zoned, and it comes with some extra things, like there could be oil out there, there could be some environmental things that came with the well that belonged there. We can't just close it and then tell the property owner, oh, nothing to see here, happy place
well,
that a well
doesn't-
wasn't.
I don't think that's
Yeah.
correctly zoned. And then we've already discussed greenhouses and the extra sell of that and
Yeah.
so forth. The cattle ranch.
That's my favorite, by the way. That's my very favorite, that you can have a cattle ranch in the
Dairy cattle.
residential multiple.
Residential multiple.
Sure enough, not in the UDO, that's not in the UDO.
And bees are currently restricted from a number of districts, but according to Article 2, Chapter 3 of the code, they're allowed in any district. And certainly that was the intent of that section of the general code. So we need to look at that.
That's a definite for sure.
And we already knew too, the animal support functions is inconsistent with accessory buildings and cannot be used for gain.
Yeah.
And by the way, is extra ammunition in the definition section of the UDO, home occupations specifically talks about secondary or accessory buildings allowed to be used for home occupations. So different than what our accessory building sections say.
Yep. I think we have good support for that removal of games. We have quite a few council members that have businesses out of their accessory buildings.
Forestry and logging is allowed in the recreational zoning district. I think we wanna look at that. Again, it's not inconsistent, but if you're talking silviculture,
Yeah.
the golf course doesn't need to do that. They need to clear trees once in a while, but that's not forestry and logging.
No, forestry and logging falls under agriculture, and that doesn't, that, I agree with you, that is not really something that would be in the general areas.
And the last general thing I had was, again, already covered, a special use permit, I think, designation.
I
would
think
be
we all
helpful to
support
us.
that for sure. If you can, I think we should all take a look at that list now that we know what you have already. Definitely, two reasons to really get in here and get into the meat and potatoes of this authorized uses. One is to anything that you might have missed, which I don't think you missed any, but
I've missed
but
plenty of
if you did, we can, have multiple sets of eyes on it. And the other thing is, I think you're right, we're gonna be using this to direct us for some broader discussions and broader changes in the UDO, so it'd be a good place to start. And we had talked about, section by section in that UDO a while back before you came on the board. We were trying to get there, to go section by section, and then we were, told that that might not be the best use of our time. And so, this would be probably a little bit more detailed, finite area to start with. Instead of coming in with a broadsword, we can come in with a scalpel and start going and really, go section based on the table of authorized uses. So if you'll separate those out, we'll come back with our homework in April and then start really putting together a recommendation for that. What else did we have on our, we will be discussing, I just don't wanna kick the can down the road too much further on that short-term rental stuff. So we'll bring that into, April we'll start with your table of authorized uses and then go into that. And I think, did we have any other old business? I don't think so. All right, well, I had accidentally skipped the public comment section at the beginning. If anyone would like to take this time, come up, tell us who you are, your name, where you live, and tell us what you'd like to tell us.
Sandy Cameron, Richmond Road. One thing you might want to think about because of the public comment, there are places that have public comment at the beginning and at the end. Because in the beginning I didn't have a comment, but I do now. So, on the part about replacing the members, either putting it in the UDO or in a handbook, if it's in a handbook, none of us know about it. So, and we do look at UDOs, we look at everything. I'm not the only one who does it. So if that was in a handbook, I wouldn't know it existed. So my question is, on your vote, I didn't quite understand when you are putting it to the council, are you putting it in as we want it on the UDO or we want it on the UDO or the handbook? When you said it, I couldn't understand when you voted
Sorry
which
about
way
that.
you wanted to go.
It would be at the purview of the council. The council, we're gonna make a recommendation that this be put either in the UDO or the employee manual, and it will be left to the council which direction it goes. And the reason it will be because ultimately it's their choice anyway. They could either shoot it down totally. If we go with it, and I like Mick's suggestion, because if we make the recommendation for just the UDO, they can say, we don't like this, we don't want it, we're done. If we say it can go in the UDO or it can go in the employee manual, your choice, but we'd like to recommend this process, they could still say, we don't like it, we're not doing it. At which point the comment from the public can come up and say, hey, we want something in there. We don't want to see this happen again. But giving them the option of either or and really letting it be it's their choice anyway. They're the ones that make that rule. We're just recommending. We're recommending this verbiage, but we're recommending it for the UDO or the employee manual, whichever they choose to do. They could ultimately choose not to do either or.
Sure.
But that's also at their discretion regardless. It's just a recommendation. But we recommended, we're going to send it up as a
As
recommendation for either or.
Okay.
If they could choose as a group, they could vote to put it in the UDO, or they could vote as a group to put it in the employee manual, or they could vote to ignore it. I don't want to say ignore, to not take the recommendation. Ignore is a bad word. They could vote to not take the recommendation at all.
Got it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just note to, Mr. Chairman, any written procedures or administrative procedures of Foxfire Village are subject to FOIA request, and anyone out in the residence can get it.
Oh,
You could get the handbook.
I did not know that.
Freedom of Information
I
Act.
did not know
it's a
that.
Freedom of Information Act item.
I thought only an employee could get the handbook.
But, okay, thank you very much for that. Did you have a comment
Yes.
as well, sir?
I'm gonna piggyback what Sandy said.
Tell us who you are.
Dan Leary, 73 North Shamrock.
Thank you, Mr. Leary.
I kinda wanna hit both sides, Mick's side and Rick's side at the same time, that since if it's in the UDO and it would hold the council to, I don't wanna say, this is probably the wrong word to use, arbitrary dates, is to use your procedure in the UDO without number of days, but recommend it with the days for their employee handbook, like say as an example, 5 days, 30 days. So this way, if something like you just said, the council runs into like the chaos they had with the election and 2 people being replaced and the pool issue, which overwhelmed everybody, that maybe so they don't get sued or the state come after for whatever. It's in the UDO to follow this process, but the dates are, the time periods are in the employee handbook. And you could even, I don't even know if you put something at the bottom of the UDO, refer to the employee handbook, I don't know. But that was my thought with that. Because it's something like everybody said, most people aren't gonna FOIA anything. These ladies might. but I certainly wouldn't, but if it's in the UDO, then anybody who's going to look can see that there's a procedure, and I think they need a procedure, and I don't know personally, but I don't think it was an intentional thing. I just think with all the changes and things going on, that everybody's overwhelmed, and so that's all I can say. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Leary.
You're welcome.
All right, well, if we don't have any more comments, I make a motion to close our meeting at 7:31.
Second.
All right. Thank you, sir.